Good afternoon and welcome to the Voices in Leadership, a series focusing on science and leadership. I am Betty Johnson and I have the privilege to direct this program and introduce today's guest. The Honorable Ban Ki-moon was the 8th Secretary General of the United Nations, serving 2 consecutive terms from January 1, 2007 to December 31, 2016. As Secretary General, he focused on mobilizing world leaders around a set of new global challenges, from climate change and economic upheaval to pandemics and increasing pressures involving food, energy, and water. He also galvanized partners from non-governmental organizations, faith groups, the business community, and others active on the international stage, endeavoring to build bridges, give voice to the world's poorest and most vulnerable people, and strengthen the United Nations. He has worked to advance the world's main anti-poverty targets, the Millennium Development Goals, with a special emphasis on Africa and women's and children's health. At the height of the food, energy, and economic crisis in 2008, the Secretary General successfully appealed to the G20 for $1 trillion, a finance package for developing countries to protect the vulnerable and poor. Born in the Republic of Korea, Mr. Secretary General's childhood was scarred by war. Fighting forced his family to flee to the mountains. When they returned, he learned firsthand the value of the UN's life-saving relief aid. That experience was a big part of what led me to pursue a career in public service, he once said, pledging to enable the United Nations to provide tangible, meaningful results that advance peace, development, and human rights. Before I turn this session over to today's interviewer, Dr. Howard Koh, Harvey V. Feinberg Professor of the Practice of Public Health Leadership, please join me as we welcome the Honorable Ban Ki-moon to the Voices in Leadership series at the Harvard T.H. Chan School of Public Health.
Thank you.
So, Mr. Secretary General, welcome. It's great to see you.
Thank you. It's a great pleasure to be here.
Thank you. So you've just completed 2 terms, 10 years as UN Secretary General, a challenging job in a challenging and complex world. When you describe this position to students or the general public, how would you explain this role in the most simple of terms?
It has been a great privilege for me to have served this great organization, the most universal and legitimate, comprising all the member states of the international community. It's easier to ask that question. It may take a little bit longer time, but in view of time's sake, I'll be very brief. There are 3 most important priority pillars in the Charter of the United Nations. First, to maintain peace and security and make sure that everybody is well supported in terms of development, and make sure that everybody's human rights and human dignity are protected. These 3 principles and pillars of the United Nations have been the guiding force and source of inspiration and motivation for me to serve the great organization, the 7.3 billion people around the world. It's been quite difficult and challenging, but I often said that my job as a Secretary General, while do not have much resources, much physical power, but I have the moral voice. And I've been describing my job as a person with working for the voiceless people. So I have been playing a role as voice of voiceless people and defender of defenseless people. There are so many people, weak people, marginalized group of people whose voices have never been carried out, never been heard by the leaders of the society. So I've been working for their voices, and there are so many defenseless people. These are something which United Nations Secretary General should do and have been doing during last 72 years. When United Nations is united, we can deliver a lot. We can save many human lives. But when United Nations is divided, as often we have seen in the case of many serious conflict issues like in Syria, then unfortunately we have seen so many tragic situations. So I'm asking whole world's leaders to be united so that UN can deliver what is needed for people.
In 2015, you announced a number of Sustainable Development Goals for the planet, so-called SDGs, and they encompassed a wide range of areas, including global health and well-being. Can you comment on those goals, what it means to you, and what it means for the future health of our global community?
While there have been some criticisms about the efficiencies and effectiveness of the United Nations, I think this is one of the proudest vision which the United Nations could present to the world. The Sustainable Development Goals has 17 goals with detailed 169 targets which support these 17 goals. It covers whole spectrums of our life and even that of planet Earth. Therefore, by 2030, when we can implement in full these 17 goals with a wholehearted support and engagement and ownership by the member states, I think I can say that the world will be much better, much more peaceful, much healthier, much more prosperous, where 7.3 billion people's human dignity will be respected. It's important that the member state will own these 17 goals as their own goals. Even though it has been presented by the United Nations, it is now owned by the individual member states. It is by far, in the history of the United Nations, the most far-reaching and most ambitious vision for the people, and including planet Earth.
So one example of that is SDG 13 on climate action, and you were very vocal in the area of having countries work together to address global warming. And of course, the 2015 Paris climate agreements occurred under your leadership. These went into force in 2016. Now it's 2017. And here in the United States, we have a new administration whose commitment to the Paris Agreement is uncertain. Do you want to comment on where you think this is all going to go in the future?
Among 17 goals, I think every goals, they are important. But I believe without addressing climate change phenomenon, I'm afraid to tell you that all these remaining 16 goals may be spoiled, may be delayed in their implementation. That is why the member states have conducted two separate negotiations. The climate change number 13 goal has been taken out and has been moving on a separate track of negotiation to conclude a binding agreement, while 16 remaining goals have been also conducted through negotiation, but they are not binding. So this is kind of a treaty, this is kind of some political declaration, a vision, but they are all interconnected. No goal can or operates in separation from another goals. They are all tightly interconnected. Therefore, everything must be implemented and carried out altogether. Among them, climate change is one of the most vitally important one. Why? It affects the whole of our life, and it affects our nature, our planet Earth. Our motto is that people and this planet Earth should go together. And we have to go according to what nature tells. We cannot negotiate. We cannot wait for nature to wait for us. And we have to tell that what science tells us. This has been my point of argument consistently and persistently to the leaders of the world. That's why I really wanted to show and lead this campaign by example, showing by example. As a Secretary General, I have traveled almost all the places, front lines where I could see for myself the very serious tragic phenomenon caused by climate change. And I've been sending out alarm bells to the world leaders. Fortunately, the member states have been able to agree on two visions. Climate change agreement was finally approved by whole 196 state parties on December 12, 2015. And this Sustainable Development Goals as a package, it was adopted by consensus, unanimity on September 19th, 2015. So these two visions, which have been presented by the United Nations during my time as a Secretary General, I think are the most important one and proudest one for the United Nations. Yeah.
So what about the current status of the U.S. stance regarding the Paris agreements right now in 2017? Do you want to comment on that?
U.S. played the vitally important role together with China. United States, the most resourceful and most prosperous country in the world. In terms of greenhouse gas emissions, you are second largest greenhouse gas emissions, unfortunately. Then China as number one. President Obama and President Xi Jinping, they worked very closely together with me. And I have been very much grateful to their leadership. Now, with the change of the administration to Republican President Mr. Trump, I have been hearing and listening and reading some concerns that the U.S. may not wholeheartedly implement this one. I have been urging through my own press interview or op-ed and in my lectures that U.S. must lead this campaign. U.S. is obligated by this binding agreement to reduce at least 26 to 28% of greenhouse gas emissions compared to the level of 2005. Mm-hmm. If U.S. does not implement this one, or if they withdraw, then this will be a devastating impact to this global vision. This is not an issue of American political administration or president. This is something about humanity. This is something about our planet Earth, where current generations and succeeding generations and succeeding generations for millennia, they should be able to live in peace and harmony in affordable economic and environmental circumstances. Now, I am encouraged, while I am concerned, by such a strong commitment by the people of the United States. Like big states like California, Oregon, Washington, and even Republican dominant states like Illinois and somewhere. I think the governors and the mayors, they are all carrying out this Paris Agreement. And big major companies like GM, Coca-Cola, or like many big companies, they know that their success depends upon the full implementation of this Paris Agreement. Paris Agreement may not and cannot be a perfect solution. It's not a perfect answer. We have to improve and update and augment, while review sessions will continue to take place once in every 5 years. The first such review conference will take place next year. So they will review what has been done. Now, I heard that there are some serious concerns raised by the coal industries, even biggest coal industries in the United States. I think they are joining this Paris Agreement. It's not because of the job opportunities have been reduced because of climate change agreement. It's because of technology development, transformative technology development, and also this fossil fuel is now being replaced by this other sustainable energy, like solar energy and hydro energy. I sincerely hope and urge the United States will really take global leadership. Yeah.
So another major global challenge to discuss, you mentioned Syria in your opening minutes. And of course, this is a major global humanitarian challenge, estimated by some to have effects on some 13 million people, either internally displaced in that country or forced to live outside the country as refugees. What can we as a global community do to address this issue going forward?
It's one of the most regrettable things which I had to leave behind when I left the United Nations. It's already been a full 6 years since the Syrian crisis took place. In the course of these 6 years, because of lack of compassion on the part of Syrian leaders, and because of the lack of unity among the major countries in the region, Arab region, and also in the United Nations, particularly in the Security Council, they have shown such divisions in their political commitment. Because of that, 5 million Syrian people had to leave their country, flee their countries, and becoming refugees in mostly 4 countries, in Lebanon, Turkey, Jordan, and Iraq, and some in northern Africa, in Egypt, 5 million. As you said, 13 million people have been internally displaced, and there are again another millions of people who are living under very terrible situation, besieged or hard to reach areas. So United Nations have been mobilizing all necessary humanitarian assistance, but there is a huge shortage of resources which we can deliver to these people because of lack of resources, because of the concerns for security for humanitarian workers. So it's a complicated one. As of this moment today in Geneva, another negotiation is going on under Special Envoy Mr. de Mistura. I sincerely hope that there will be some a good resolution of this issue, political resolution. And there was another very encouraging meeting in Astana, Kazakhstan last week to establish 4 safe zones. This is a matter of human dignity, human lives. So whatever there may be political differences among the parties concerned, we must make sure that we have to save and protect the human lives and deliver necessary humanitarian assistance. More than 50% of health institutions have been destroyed and damaged, and people cannot be given any health assistance, and that's a huge tragedy at this time. I am urging again, as a former Secretary General, that the member states should unite and show their compassionate leadership.
One question related to this that's been submitted to us online is that there are many at this university and this school who care deeply about this humanitarian crisis. What can we do in the academic and educational community to try to make a contribution here?
We are really seriously concerned and going through most tragic humanitarian crisis these days. It's, I think, only after the end of Second World War, we have 55 million people scattered all around the world. We have at least 135 million people who really need daily humanitarian assistance, life-saving assistance, without which they may die. They may not be able to maintain their daily living. Because of continuing economic situation downturn, and because of very dangerous security concerns, the international community has not been able to fully support this humanitarian assistance to those people. Like, I really take it very seriously that the highest learning educational institutions like Harvard University, the School of Health and medical schools, they should also teach good students while fostering the global visions, and also try to educate the professional doctors or health workers who can deliver all these services. I'm asking all the graduating students and now in the Harvard University and many other universities, academic institutions, they should learn how they can contribute as global citizens. Their professional knowledge, professional career may be very important, but their professional capacity should be utilized for common humanity. Yeah.
Thank you. Another very difficult challenge to discuss with you is the state of global preparedness. And during your tenure as Secretary General, I know you faced challenges like the H1N1 flu pandemic in 2009, Ebola from 2014 to 2016, Zika that started in 2015. Lots of discussions about how to improve global preparedness. And could you comment on that?
Unfortunately, during my time of 10 years, I had to encounter and face, not only me, but whole member state have to encounter all unexpected outbreak of many diseases of international concern, like H1N1, and most seriously Ebola, and then later Zika. Those three outbreaks of three major concerns of human health have brought and made the United Nations to really mobilize whole its capacity and political commitment to make sure that the people in need of help received their help. Now, when Ebola broke out, it was most serious moment for international community. I immediately acted to mobilize a whole international support. In fact, WHO declared it as the global public public health of international concern, PHEIC. Then we had established a mission, UNMEER, UNMEER, United Nations Mission for Ebola Response. It was the first time that the United Nations history has established a mission, special mission for health issues. United Nations has been establishing many peacekeeping missions, special political missions for peace and security issues, but never in the history for health issues. It was, I think, a speediest way handled. We have just taken immediate action by the General Assembly, disregarding all these bureaucratic procedures. And even United States government, under the leadership of President Obama, has dispatched 3,000 soldiers. And United Kingdom and Sierra Leone they sent also a few hundred soldiers to Liberia and Sierra Leone and Guinea. This really helped in addressing and countering and eliminating Ebola disease. While it has been quite a tragic experience, but I am proud that the United Nations has taken all its power and capacity and mobilizing all the resources. When Zika was also declared the public health emergency of international concern, then we also established immediate response task forces. As a matter of principle, I established a high-level panel to address the global concerns of international concerns, and established high-level task force led by Dr. David Nabarro, who was appointed as my special advisor on disease control. And when H1N1 broke out, we gathered all the leaders of CEOs of major pharmaceutical companies of the world, encouraging them to make vaccines as soon as possible and distribute it to many people affected. I know that UN has a capacity when we are united, when we are committed. I know that when UN is not united, like divided, as we have seen in Syria, we have seen so much tragic consequences. Therefore, I'm again urging that we have to really mobilize all resources possible. It's a matter of human lives. We have to save human lives. Otherwise, many people will die from preventable diseases. Yeah.
So last question for you, Mr. Secretary General. Now that you've stepped out and you're reflecting on your public service, what leadership lessons do you have for our students and for future generations?
When you talk about leadership, it's a matter of vision, first of all, how to inspire people, how to motivate the people. That's a very important one. When there is an issue, always leadership matters. Depending upon how leadership people act with a compassionate vision, then we can deliver a lot of different results in a positive manner. When leaders do not listen to the voices of the people, what their concerns or aspirations may be, then there is always a political conflict breakout all around the world. That's, I've been always urging that to the leaders that they should listen very carefully to the voices of people and try to find out and address their concerns and aspirations. I think this is a leadership. When you talk about leadership, people has a tendency of believing that leadership is something great and big, but each and every student, each and every professors, you have your own leadership style. When you really motivate your students and inspire your students, I think they can become great leaders of the world or their countries in the future.
So unfortunately, time is up. I hate to end this conversation, but thank you so much for being here, Mr. Secretary General, and thank you very much for your public service.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you.
If you are interested in supporting this program and others like this from the Leadership Studio at the Harvard T.H. Chan School of Public Health, please call 617-432-1318 for further information.